Good morning, friends. So today I want to share with you a lesson that I have learned over the last several months. That is it was really convicting when I realized what I was doing. Let's put it this way. I got really convicted and I learned a lot from doing this, okay? So, as the title of the video says, don't put God in a box. Well, what do I mean by this? Okay, story time. As you guys know, we recently moved from California to Tennessee. But here's the deal. God was starting to kind of put it in our hearts to move a while before we moved. Like, I'm talking, we'd wanted to move. My husband and I started dating in 2015. I remember we were dating. Like, we weren't even engaged, but we were, like, seriously dating. And we were talking about potentially moving out of state. Like, we were seriously enough dating that we, like, knew we were going to get married. We just, like, weren't engaged yet. And then, so we were kind of, like, discussing that, like, well, what would that look like? Like, would we stay here? Would we move? What are we going to do? Kind of things. We started looking at some things in other states because my husband was looking for a job anyway. All this to say, so this is like 10 years ago, we were thinking about moving out of state. And we chose not to at the time. It just didn't feel right for a variety of reasons. But it was something we talked about for years. From then on, like, we kept talking about it. It was something like eventually. Well, okay, then 2 years ago in 2023, this would have been, I was pregnant with my fourth child. It would have been it was in like June or July. So it was about 6 or 7 months after our third child had passed. I was pregnant with baby. I was like early stage pregnant with baby number 4. And my husband he actually was like seriously looking at houses. I think at the time he was looking at Oklahoma. And for me, every time we had talked about moving, I had all these strings attached to it. It was kind of like, yeah, I'm open to moving if it looks like this, pretty much. It was one of those, like, I had conditions on being willing to move. And so at that point in time when he was looking, in retrospect, I now see it was the Lord wanting him to start looking and getting ready to move. In retrospect, I see that was like the Lord. But in that time, I had such a narrow view of what I wanted it to look like. And so basically I told my husband, I was like, when he started looking at houses, I think in Oklahoma, I was like, I'm willing to move, but not until after the baby's at least 6 months old. Like, I don't even want to think about moving until this baby that I'm pregnant with is at least 6 months old. So like for a year, because I was like early pregnancy. Anyway, so I was like, at least give me 1 more year. Okay. So my husband agreed. He's like, okay. He's like, I really think we need to move soon. And I think that if I had been open to it, he would have wanted to move while I was pregnant. And in retrospect, that might have been a good thing. But I had a box. I had this narrow view of, I'm willing to do this if it looks like this. And this is this is something that I was doing this whole season. So first it was like, okay, I'm not willing to even think about it until the new baby's 6 months old. Okay. Well, so we did that. So my husband's like, okay, so he put a pin in it and we didn't really talk about it at all until later. Fast forward a few months, I'm still pregnant. It's the end of the year. And so it's the end of 2023. And I start getting this nudge in my spirit to really radically like declutter and purge our home. And so I did. I started. Like, we definitely had like a lot of things, and I went through and I purged a lot. In retrospect, hindsight's 2020, right? In retrospect, I chalked it up to being pregnant and being due in January, and so like being in like nesting mode. And I didn't really actually press in to see if it was the Lord who was putting that like bee in my bonnet. Hindsight 2020, the Lord showed me that was actually him telling me it's time to like purge and to get ready to move. And this would have been over a year before we moved, by the way, that the Lord started getting me ready, okay? So there was this like urge, and so I did some, like I did quite a bit of of purging and cleaning and getting things ready, but I also was in like get ready for baby mode, so I was also like acquiring things. So rather than like reducing our possession, I was just like exchanging. Like I got rid of stuff, but then I got more stuff. And then the baby was born. My fourth kid was born, and I had like, you know, postpartum season, whatever. And then at the exactly 6 months old mark, he was exactly 6 months old, and I get this word, and the Lord tells me, it is time to start decluttering your house. It is time to start purging. You will be moving within the next year. Like he told me, like we would be moving sometime in 2025. He didn't give me dates. He didn't give me timeline other than within 2025. So it was like, it could have been January, it could have been December. We don't really know, but it's going to be sometime in 2025. We are moving. Get ready. And so I was like, okay. So like I started kind of decluttering, and but I had this idea. I had this vision and this idea of what I thought it would look like or what it should look like. And kind of the only way is like I was going to be okay with doing it. So basically I was assuming that when we moved, it would be like, because my husband had a job offer, or he was able to transfer offices with the current job he had, and that we would be going to another house, and that we would have like room to take all of our furniture and all of our things, and that we would have I had a lot of assumptions. And so I went through and I got rid of everything I wasn't using. And then the Lord kept telling me like, declutter. And I hit this wall finally a couple months later where I was like, I've already decluttered everything that I'm not using, or that I don't have, like, I don't feel like there's value to, if that makes sense, right? Like I got rid of the junk. But the Lord kept kind of pushing, and he was like, purge, like you need to purge. And I was like, okay. But here's the truth of the matter is I was dilly-dallying. And it was because the rationale that I had was I had this idea of how it was supposed to go. I knew we were moving, and I was okay with that. I was at the point where I was ready to move. I wanted to move. I'm like, let's go. I'll go today. And I was ready for it. But I still had all of these ideas of what it was supposed to look like, or what it should look like, and what I wanted it to look like. And so I was putting these conditions, and I was trying to put God into this box of, okay, well, when Paul has to get a job first, and we have to have a house lined up, we have to have all these things lined up. And the Lord kept telling me, like, purge. And full disclosure, I didn't get super serious about it until November. November is when I started getting serious about it. And I was like, and the Lord told me, he's like, you're moving sooner rather than later. It's going to be early in the year, not the end of the year in 2025. You need to get ready now. And he told me we had to cut our possessions in half. And so I started doing it. But I was coming up against a lot of these walls. And I shared a post about this the other day about seeing that there was some idolatry in my life. And in that basically I was finding a lot of security in my possessions. And so there were things that I had that like I had never used that were just sitting in my garage taking up space, but every time I went to go get rid of them, I was like, but what if I need it? Or like, I've used it once in 5 years. What if I need it again? Instead of like trusting that like the Lord's gonna provide. And so I was getting rid of stuff, but I really wasn't hitting it as hard as the Lord wanted me to. And so I was really, and then it was Christmas, and we did all the Christmas things and whatever. And then Christmas is over. I put Christmas away, and it was December 31st. And all of December I was getting this stirring in my spirit of like, it's gonna be quick, it's gonna be fast, and it's gonna be like it was gonna be like a go now. Like there's not gonna be like a long space of time. The Lord was showing me that there wasn't gonna be some like long lead up, but I kept having in my head that it had to look a certain way. And so finally, it was on December 31st, God told me, you are leaving on the 15th. That week, Paul had the week off. And the Lord said, you're leaving that week when Paul is off. It's not, Paul had taken the week off to just like do some stuff around the house and stuff. And the Lord was like, he's not, you're going to be doing stuff around the house, but you're moving. And I was like, okay, so this was 2 weeks. God gave me like a 2-week notice. And I told Paul that, and Paul was like, yeah, agreed, and confirmed that. But we didn't actually really talk about it again. And in my mind, and here, this is why I'm talking about this. I still had this box of, I made it mean, when God said we were moving, I didn't take it as what he meant it, which was, you're moving, period. Like, there's no conditions, there's no variables, you're moving. That's what he meant. I took it as though, because I had conditions and I had variables. I was like, well, I'm not willing. I was still caught up in the natural of like, I'm not going to move if Paul doesn't have a job. Like, we're not leaving this. He had a stable government job working for the post office. So it was like, I'm not leaving a stable job at a home that we're established in if I'm not going to something, if he doesn't have a job. Like, we're not going to just leave. That was that was my thought. And so I still kind of was in this like waiting game, and it was more of like just waiting, going like, hey, asking Paul like, how's the job hunt coming? How, have you heard from anybody? And like putting a lot of pressure on him in that way, instead of leaning into what the Lord was asking me to do, which was pack, which was get even more radical. And over the couple of weeks, he started kind of going. A few days later, it was like, get rid of half your clothes. Like, he started giving me like really specific tasks, and over the course of the next week or so, and started working in me and really pushing me and going like, are you willing to obey me? Like, if I ask you to leave and there is no job and you're just going, would you obey me? Like, are you actually that surrendered? You say you're surrendered, but are you really? And because honestly, at that point, I wasn't yet. I was trying to make him fit in my box of what I wanted things to look like. And I was dragging my feet on what he was asking me to do because I wanted him to fit in my box. And he really started pushing and challenging me on that and going like, what if I ask you to go and Paul doesn't have a job and you don't know where you're going? What if I ask you to go without saying goodbye to people? What if I ask you to just leave and not tell anyone you're leaving and you just go? What if I ask you to do that? And he started like bringing that up, and I was like, it pushed me into this place of having to really actually make those decisions of like, oh, if he says go and it doesn't look the way I want it to look, but I know it's him, am I gonna obey? And I did. Obviously, here I am. Here I am in Tennessee. But it took a lot of that. And because of that, because of me trying to fit God in a box and me trying to manipulate the situation to be what I wanted it to look like in my flesh, it ended up causing a lot of stress and pain because I had dilly-dallied. And so that last push for moving ended up being really a lot more stressful than it needed to be, because like literally we pulled an all-nighter the night before we left. Like literally it was it was very stressful and it was very hard, but it was also the right thing. And so that is like, but basically when I say like, are we putting God in a box? It's, are we trying to put conditions on what is he's asking us to do? Like if we're feeling pulled in a certain direction, are we pressing in and asking the Lord to lead and being willing to just go, to just obey? Or are we saying like, oh yeah, I'll do that if it looks like this. If it looks like this, I'll do A, B, and C, but not D. Or I'll do A or B, but not C, right? Like, are we putting parameters on what God is calling us to do? That's what I did over in that season, and I've repented and I've shifted, and it does make a huge difference, and it's made me more sensitive to how often I try to do that in my flesh. Like, it's brought my awareness of like, there's times still when my flesh will rise up and try to do that. That was something just a couple weeks ago that the Lord convicted me of again. And I'll go more into this story another time when we're a little bit more when I have a little more clarity on it, because I'm still kind of working through it. But the Lord, I've been feeling the nudge to do something for a while, and more than a nudge, even like a desire to do something. But there's kind of like 3 options. There's an A, B, and C, and I was kind of like, well, I'm willing to do A, and I'm willing to do C, but B is not an option. So if I'm not able to do A, I'm not doing B, so I'll do C. If that makes sense. And the Lord convicted me, and he's all, you haven't asked me about this. You haven't asked me what my input is on this. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I repented. I was like, okay, Lord, what is your input on this? What do you want me to do in this situation? And he said, A, I know that your heart's desire is A, so pursue A. If A doesn't work out, you're doing B. C is not an option. And I was like, oh, okay. And so that's what we're in the middle of doing right now. And so I'm currently pursuing option A, which I will share more about in the future time, because I'm still kind of seeing what happens here, but I'm obeying, right? So I'm pursuing A. If A doesn't work out, I will be doing B. And I'll have more of the juicy details about that for you in about a month or 2. So stay tuned. But that was another area, even after moving here, after having just done that. Okay, I'll get you a drink in just 1 second. I'm wrapping up right now. I started doing it again. And I think it's something that is natural in our flesh, because we want security. We want to feel like we're in control, and we want stability. Like our brains crave predictability. Like we want predictability. And so we try to like control the outcome, control the variables. And that's not faith. That's not faith. Faith is saying, God, you're in control. I'm going to trust you, I'm going to trust you that you're going to work out the variables. And that's that. And releasing that control. That's what faith is we release that to the Lord and trust him, that as we seek him, as we pursue him and obey him, that he will work it all out, even if it's not what we think it should look like. And there's a promise for that. There's a promise of that in Psalms. It talks about, it says that delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. This doesn't mean that when we follow God, he gives us everything we want in the flesh. No. What it means is that when we delight ourselves in the Lord, meaning when we lean into him, when we align ourselves with him, when we surrender to him, when we're fully all in for him, and he is our core desire, focus, delight. We are just, abiding in him. We are just there in him. That when we do that and we allow him in, we allow Holy Spirit in to work, to cleanse, to transform our hearts, that when we do that, our hearts align with his and our desires become his. And then because our desires become his desires, and because our hearts are aligned with his heart, and our focus is aligned with his focus, and we're in alignment, those desires are put there by him, and he fulfills them. And so when we do that, it brings so much freedom. And so it's just so awesome. Like, it's so awesome. So when we stop trying to put him in a box, when we stop trying to fit him in our box, and we instead remove the box and step into him, that's when freedom is found. That's when crazy, amazing breakthrough. That's when we get to see miracles. That's when we get to see just amazing things happen. And so, friend, I ask you, if you want to apply what we've learned, where are you putting God in a box? Where are you trying to control the outcome and say, well, if it looks like this, I'll do it, but if it doesn't, I won't? Okay? I invite you to explore that, and I will talk to you later.